day it is outside here in Florida, in Central Florida especially. Before we get into the program, it's important to note that we just added a utility committee member. We are replacing, as if we could, we're replacing Daryl Johnson. He is being replaced with Dan Tillman. Dan has an extensive background in the utility sector, which is new for us, and I really welcome having somebody with his background and knowledge. This includes a significant amount of time in executive leadership in different organizations around the country. So happy to have Dan Tillman on board, and I would like to ask Dan if he'd just like to say a few words in his own defense to just take a couple of minutes.
Well put. Well, I do have a long-term relationship in the utility industry. I am a second-generation utility employee. I have an MBA in finance from Syracuse University. I retired in 2018 after a 44-year career in electric and gas utilities. I spent 30 years at an investor-owned utility and 14 years at 2 electric cooperatives. Last 30 years, I was in various positions of executive management, as Joel mentioned. I retired as Executive Chief Financial Officer. And at my last assignment, I even spent a few months as the CEO. So that was kind of an interesting time frame. I have experience in operations, customer service, power supply, rates, regulatory at the state and federal level, and corporate finance. On a personal level, moved to Lakeland about 15 months ago. I've been married to my wonderful wife, Carol, for 45 years. We have 3 daughters, 2 of which are married. No grandchildren yet. Our middle daughter and her husband live about 10 minutes away from us here in Lakeland, which makes it real nice. And our extended family has been in Lakeland since 1948. So that's briefly about me.
Dan, welcome aboard. We are so grateful to have your willingness to serve so quickly and your experience coupled on this committee. And you'll be a valuable asset, I'm sure, as a result. And I'm sure the people at Lakeland Electric are celebrating with your background and knowledge because it is just very welcomed.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to go and just step into the program. I wanted to have just kind of an ad hoc discussion about Unit 3. At 3:13, we're calling it Sunday morning, so the night before last, we actually entered shutdown mode for Unit 3. We ended with about 8,000 tons of coal on the ground, and to be honest with you, that's better than I thought we would wind up with. In terms of, I figured we would have more on the ground. We are still in cool down mode, but we're going to be beginning the process of securing the equipment for the permanent offline status. And so some of that involves, we're going to be preparing it for long-term abandonment and potential demolition. The demolition is optional. We don't have to put that on a fast timeline, but if we can't get it done, we really would like to. The unit's got to be cleaned of the ash and the coal, all the residue. The electrical connections to the grid is kind of an important item. We got to get those removed. We've got a status with the North American Electric Reliability Corporation where we need to get that status kind of off the books with them. And so we'll be able to notify them when we get that done. Of course, all the systems are going to be powered down and isolated. We got to drain oil and water from all the systems, from the motors and the pumps and whatnot. The cooling tower fans will have to be taken down. Just several areas. I'm not going to read all these, but several areas that we've got to really take some care to get this done. It's going to take us some time to get all that taken care of. We do have Black & Veatch working to produce a final decommissioning report. We brought Black & Veatch on right about the same time that we announced that we were having an expedited shuttering. And so they're having to work a little bit faster than we had anticipated that they would. So we expect a report coming out of them beginning probably in May and June for how we dispose of the ash pile, or at least take care of that issue, and then also the demolition itself. So as of now, not necessarily right now today, but we've had, from a personnel standpoint, we've had about 7 people leave the city, and we've got a few more people that are en route, that are getting other jobs quickly. We've had so far 13 take other jobs in the city elsewhere, 12 of those being within Lakeland Electric. And then we got 14 people that are in drop and will be dropping in this 5-month transition period. So we project we'll have about 55 remaining, and that's just assuming that other people aren't getting jobs elsewhere, which I anticipate many people will be. We will continue to support these employees through the next 5 months. And like I said, I expect that number 55 to get quite a bit lower as we go through the next few months. We're working on the final financial impact numbers, but I can tell you I've got a kind of a back of the envelope from the fuels group. And so they're estimating a write down of approximately $500,000, and that's related to, you know, the loss because of the amount of coal that we have on the ground, which is a whole lot less than I thought it was going to be. It like 3 times less than what I figured it would be. We've got some rail car lease arrangements that we're going to be getting out of and dropping out of that, and then we're turning in that big 992 Caterpillar front end loader that we had. That we were on a month-to-month lease with that one, so we're just going to be fixing it back up to its original condition and giving it back to them. So that's kind of the status. This is really a momentous occasion in my mind. I mean, it's kind of surreal to look out across the lake and not see any steam coming out of any of the production facilities out there related to coal. But we are entering into a new era, and we're doing so with trepidation, but also some excitement, because we're going to be just looking at the bigger environmental aspect of the benefits of dropping out of the coal industry or the coal production. And I think you've heard the numbers. Our CO2 emissions should be reduced by over 50% just as a result of getting out of coal generation. And so we will be bringing you all, we project that we would bring you the RFP for the replacement capacity using the RICE engines. It looks like it's going to be this summer, early summer probably. And then we do have some amount of solar that we were able to get through an RFP that we should be bringing to you probably in about a month. I would expect. It's not the 50 megawatts that we were looking for. We wound up getting significantly less, but we're going to go back out for more RFPs and try to make sure that we can get as much as we possibly should in that arrangement. So that's just an overarching, here we are today. Mr. Mayor, if anybody had any questions, I'd be happy to entertain that.
I have 2, sir. One, how do you get rid of the excess coal as a practical matter? And 2, why not accelerate the RICE engines RFP sooner?
Okay, so what do we do with the excess coal? We are going to load it up into trucks and have it shipped off to whoever buys it. Tori is actively engaged with some folks to try to get that sold. It'll definitely be sold at a loss. That's just the way that works. So but like I said before, it's not nearly as big a loss as we thought. And in terms of expediting the RICE engines, we are working that about as fast as we can. And so I don't see it happening any sooner than the end of 2023, maybe even early into 2024. If something changes on that, just because of the amount of work that we have to do is so great. But if anything changes, we'll be ready to put it in service as soon as we possibly can. And so we will be working on a schedule to get it as soon as we can. And there's no reason why we would want it to drag out any longer than it needed to.
Very good. Any questions from committee members? I see Commissioner Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for asking that question, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we did hear a report, if I'm not mistaken again, Mr. Ivey, from Ms. Bombard about getting rid of the excess coal that we have on the ground. So is that going to be the I guess we call the format that she had shared with us about doing that.
Yes, sir. We're going to be bringing in about 300 trucks in order to ship that amount of coal out. I'm guessing, but it's going to be on or about that number. So there's going to be quite a bit of activity out there, just trying to get that scooped up and shipped out. It's a huge process, and once we get all that done, then we can start the process of cleaning up the coal yard as well.
Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Joel. Other than the having less coal on the ground than you expected, have there been any surprises so far in this process? I know it's early in the process, but anything that we didn't expect where we are today?
I'll be very candid. My biggest surprise was that we made it this far. This is a generator that's got some known issues, and we had announced that we weren't going to be spending any more money on the generator itself. And so the fact that we made it all the way to the finish line was a bit of a surprise to me. I'll be very honest about that. Beyond that, staff has reported that the shutdown was very orderly. There was nothing really extraordinary about it. They ran the coal out of the silos, which is kind of an important feature, so you don't have to then go back and unpack all that coal out of the silos like that. So I'd say everybody's done a great job getting us to this point. Certainly appreciate everybody's efforts. And really, I think we're right where we needed to be and kind of more or less where we thought we would be.
Committee Member Trotman, I think you had a question, didn't you, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Joel, for your presentation thus far. My question is regarding your statement about trepidation. That's one part of it. What are the things that make you say that there's some trepidation moving forward? And then also, secondly, regarding the CO2 emissions reduction, how are you guys effectively communicating that to the ratepayers to let them know that we are being socially responsible, not knee-jerk reaction to any type of federal policy, but basically because of the foresight of this committee and also your team to allow technology to help you to get there?
Yeah, so thanks for those questions. In terms of trepidation, we are impacting people, and that's always been the biggest part of this to me, that I want to make sure that we could mitigate as fairly as we possibly could. That is part of the trepidation. The other part is you got to know that there's some amount of solace in having a backup source of fuel. So having something other than just natural gas, and we do have diesel and oil products, but they're not as great of a resource as coal and natural gas are. So having that as a backup resource gives a little bit of comfort to us. So I'm not afraid of it, but we are approaching this in a new era, and we're more or less becoming just like everybody else who is generating using natural gas. So we're just part of the whole of everybody trying to do their part to reduce our CO2 emissions and other emissions. There's sulfur related emissions and other things related to coal generation that we're going to be improving quite a bit as well. And so, yeah, that's really just the trepidation piece of it. It's new, it's change, and we just got to draw a line in the sand and step over it and just keep going. And that's what you're going to see us do. So in terms of getting the word out, it's really hard to broadcast to people and have them appreciate what it is that you're looking to do in terms of, the environmental related to our emissions. When you're still generating with coal, people aren't real receptive to that comment. They're not really receptive to hearing what that message is. With coal going away, I think people are going to start to see, okay, they are walking the talk now, and they're doing the things that they said that they're going to do, and this becomes a lot more believable. So I think the opportunity to start spreading this message through our various platforms, all the different media, and then our social media, and then you all as ambassadors as well, would be a big help. But I think the message is going to be received very loud and clear now that we have taken this step to shut down the coal generator.
And Commissioner Selvage.
Thank you, Mayor. Joe, with the employee transition, have there been any claims made to the EEOC or from the union itself regarding wrongful terminations or failure to follow appropriate compliance regulations and how we closed it?
I am not aware of any EEOC, and I'm willing for somebody to jump in and correct me if I'm wrong on that. I'm not aware of any EEOC. We have been trying to do everything exactly by the, and even go further than most organizations might have gone. We're in various contests with the union for one thing or another. But not really so much related to this directly because, and I want to believe that it's because we've done everything that we said that we were going to do and then more. And so as long as you do that, you stand on pretty solid ground. Not that we're above making mistakes and missing things, but usually we can work those kinds of issues out right there on the ground with the affected employees. And I think our folks have really done a good job of doing that. So far we've got a litany of grievances related to other matters as we've gone through this year. It is a negotiations year. And so we're working through all those as we speak as well.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Yes, City Manager Sherrouse.
I just wanted to confirm the same as Joel stated, and I also checked with HR just a moment ago to make sure there wasn't any notification that I was unaware of, but to date, we're unaware of any filings with the EEOC related to Unit 3.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions at all? All right, so we are ready for section 2.
Very good, very good. Before we step into the presentation by Mr. Reinhardt, I wanted to just make a general announcement. We have been working for probably a year to revamp our website. And we've got an organization that came in and volunteered to do a new website for us if they could use us as their new flagship. In other words, we got that for nothing, and we readily agreed that we were going to allow that. It's also taken quite a long time to get this done. Nonetheless, we think we're going to be doing a launch on about April 9th. And so I just wanted you to know that in advance of this happening. But we're not ready to do a presentation on it. We will try to do a presentation next May and give you the full 411. It's not drastically different. It's just going to be functioning a lot better than our website does right now today. And I think that's a good thing. So without further ado, we had a question, and I think it was Commissioner Reed that was asking about water consumption and how that was all ultimately managed out at McIntosh. And so we had it teed up to do it at the last meeting, and we just really kind of ran out of steam and ran out of time. So I've asked Mr. Steve Reinhardt, who is our plant manager, to step in and just give us a big overview of how that water consumption goes, production and consumption, I guess, and then just be ready to take any questions that you all might have. So Steve, you're teed up, ready to go.
Thank you, Joel. Thanks. Thanks, everybody. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and committee members. Like Joel said, I'm Stephen Reinhardt. I am the plant manager here at McIntosh, Larson, and Winston. And just wanted to give you a basic overview of how we use water, what we use water for, and where the wastewater from our processes go. So let me see if I can switch this to the next slide, if that works. Let's see. Why is that not switching slides? Oh, I must not have this set up properly. Let's see what am I doing wrong?
Steve, this is Kevin. Use your forward and back arrow keys. Is that not working?
It's not working. Oh, there it is. No, it's not changing that screen. I guess I have it on my second screen and not on my first screen. Kevin, how do I go back to the other screen on my computer?
It's a great question. I'm not privileged enough to have two computer screens.
So I thought I had it to the right one, and apparently I have it on the wrong one. And that screen is not changing. So let's see now if I switch it to this one, it's still not working. How about I do
We got
this?
the one with the boiler graphic. Yeah, that looks good.
There we go.
Great,
Anyhow,
Steve.
so going down, so just to go over some of the things I'm going to cover today. So where does energy production use water? I'm going to try to explain that to you guys and ladies, and what is our water balance. Very important area is the well water. How can we reduce well water, and let you know what water-related permits we have for our site out here, and any questions that you guys might have. So this was actually put together, and part of it is changing, obviously, because of the shutdown of Unit 3. So where does energy production use water? So we listed the coal burner here, but one of the primary usages of water is our combined cycle power plant, the Unit 5, and then our simple cycle units. We use those for cooling water makeup. We use it for boiler makeup, or HRSG, which is a heat recovery steam generator, and then which supplies the steam to the steam turbines. And then we also use it for NOx control. At Larson, we use it on Unit 8's combustion turbine for NOx control. Basically, we control the temperature in the exhaust coming off of it to reduce the thermal NOx generated in the combustion turbine. And as well as we use it at McIntosh's gas turbine 2, the new unit that we just commissioned last June. The coal burner, also used it in the cooling water, also for boiler makeup, and then for the scrubber tower. We do have solar, which doesn't use any water, and then we also have our RICE engines at Winston, and then likewise the new engines that we're working on the RFP for 23 and 24 that Joel mentioned. They do have a cooling water loop, but it's a closed water loop, so it does not use a lot of water, and we use a little bit for NOx control. But it's actually, they've used very, very little water, the RICE engines. So our water wells, we have 7 water wells. There's two different usages for them. The demineralizers, which was a project that we went to bid on, and you guys approved a couple months back. That's a 250 to 600 gallon per minute usage for the demineralizers. If you follow my arrows, you can see that then goes into the boilers or in HRSGs at various makeup rates. And then we do blow down from those systems to our combined sump at the McIntosh power plant. We also use it for water injection, like I show there for gas turbine 2. We use about 150 gallons per minute for NOx water injection for Unit 5. If we do power augmentation, part of the next gen upgrade that we did takes us from 340 to 380 to 400 in the winter time on our maximum output on Unit 5. But that does take water to do power augmentation to add more mass into the gas turbine to get more megawatts out. And likewise, we have water injection on Unit 8 to help control our NOx, so for NOx control there. Another big area, if you go back to the left and follow the arrow down, was the Unit 3 scrubber. We don't demineralize that water, but we do use, instead of using treated wastewater from Northside or Glendale, we use the well water directly into our scrubber to the tune of about 800 gallons per minute. So all of that water, the 800 gallons per minute, the water injection, the power aug, all of that does go out to atmosphere. So we don't actually have to dispose of that water, but we actually evaporate it out of the process and send it out to atmosphere. So another big area where we use a lot of water is our cooling towers. We use the wastewater from the tanks that are on the north side of the power plant, on the east side of East Lake Parker Road over here, just north of the coal yard. There's 2 large tanks there that Northside and Glendale pump wastewater into, and then we can use that water for makeup either into Unit 5's coolant tower or into Unit 3's coolant tower. Now, the vast majority of that water is evaporated out to atmosphere. That's what you would think is steam, but it's a condensation plume coming off of our coolant towers. Basically, a cloud that's coming off our coolant towers, pure water going up to atmosphere. But then we do blow down water. From there, we blow down water from both of those coolant towers, so we don't cycle up too many solids and have problems with pluggage of our tubes and so forth. We blow down about 300 gallons per minute off Unit 5 and maybe 900 gallons per minute off of Unit 3 to our combined sump. So we're getting the blow down from the coolant towers, and also from the boilers. And then in addition to that, we also get our contact water going into the combined sump. So where does we discharge the water? Well, all of our water goes to the combined sump at McIntosh. And, part of that water comes from the coal yard, comes from the landfill, comes from the byproduct storage area. And then also, like I mentioned, the cooling towers, the boilers, and so forth. And that water gets sent down to the wetlands. In addition to Glendale discharges into the wetlands. And from the wetlands, the city either discharges to TECO, to their plant south of Mulberry, or to the Alafia River. So they can do either or. The wetlands is a very large area that can process water naturally. It's really a quite interesting facility. If you get the opportunity to ever take a tour of it, it is really a pretty neat facility that the city has developed down there. In addition to that, we also have once-through cooling. Once-through cooling is where we just take water straight off of Lake Parker and we put it right through a heat exchanger at Larson to cool off the steam coming off the back end of the gas of that steam turbine. That's about 34,000 gallons per minute of water that we put through that, and we pull the water out and discharge it directly back in to Lake Parker. So one of the things you might be thinking is, well, how could we reduce water? Well, one way to reduce the water is to shut down Unit 3, which is what we just did this past weekend, yesterday, in fact, and then go to reciprocating engines, the Rice engines, which, really is forward thinking, in my opinion, of my management team and of you, the city council and utility committee. It's a great idea to put these Rice engines in to help us not only with emissions, but help reduce water consumption out here at the plant. It also, another way to do that might be to take the wastewater, instead of using well water to make demineralized water for our boiler makeup, we could potentially use microfiltration to demineralize, to help us so we can prepare the reuse water for demineralization. However, it will cost significantly more money to do that if we were to use microfiltration in the future to reduce our dependency on wells. As far as water-related permits, we have 3 permits, primary permits that we have to follow here. There is an NPDES permit for the city discharge. That's the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System permit. That's the permit that allows the city to discharge from to the Alafia River, and it puts some requirements on us for sampling and testing our combined sump at the power plant also. In addition to that, we have the water take permits for the water wells to allow us to take water out of those 7 wells and use that water here at the plant. And then there is another permit for water use at Larson that allows us to do the once-through cooling at Larson for that power plant. And that is all I had. If anybody has any questions for me.
All right, Commissioner Reed.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks for the presentation. I have a couple of general questions. what is our total cup for the day or hour for Lakeland Power Plant?
For the water, for water consumption?
Yeah. Or what allocation? We have allocation? We have
Yeah, I'll have to get that number for you, Commissioner. I'm not 100% positive off the top of my head, but I can find that out pretty easily for you.
what is the savings now that we'll shut down Unit 3 in gallons per?
If you go back to the slide, it's two different things. We're going to reduce our water use from the wastewater process, which is to the tune of a few thousand gallons per minute, and then 800 gallons per minute from the wells that we supply to the scrubbers, and about 35 to 50 gallons per minute for the boiler itself, for the makeup water we use there. So it totals up to about close to 4,000 gallons per minute of water.
How many minutes do we run that water? That maybe it gives me a little better perspective too. Or is it hours a day, or?
It's continuous. We basically continuously, as long as we're up and running, we have continuous makeup to all those processes. You have to continuously add more water to the scrubbers to ensure that we're properly mitigating the acid gases, the PM emissions, and so forth off of our flue gases, as well as the boiler always requires a little bit of makeup water to it, simply because we do have to blow down because of the we don't want to get too high solids in our unit. I mean, it was a 2,400 psi unit, so that's really high pressure. So you got to make sure the water is super clean. So we constantly have to make water, and we do lose a little bit of steam here and there off our process. And then obviously, we're constantly evaporating water off the cooling tower and trying to make sure we blow down the cooling tower to meet our TDS limits that we have at the wetlands.
Hey,
So
Steve,
we're going to save about 250,000 gallons an hour.
it's going to be very significant.
If it's 4,000 gallons a minute, that's 240,000 gallons an hour, basically. So we'll be saving that amount.
If you figure that plant doesn't run maybe 3 months out of the year because of maintenance and things like that, so it's running 24 hours a day. Beyond that, it may not be a full load, but it's running 24 hours a day. So that's probably a pretty good number.
Good. You also use this, talk about this microfiber. Is that our gray water you're referring to?
Yes, sir. If we were to try to take the gray water, because it's got higher solids in it and higher suspended solids in particular, it's very difficult. It'll foul up RO membranes and demineralize resin. So therefore, you'd have to go through microfilters before you could possibly use it in those processes to ensure that you had very low NTU turbidity in it. I've actually done that at a power plant, and that's what we did. We by using similar water, we processed it through a microfiltration system, which basically doubled our cost.
What do we? I see we're taking raw water straight out of a perker. Do we do a filtration there of any sort? And what's the temperature that water comes out of that plant? I live on Lake Parker. I see a lot of people fishing that canal. I assume it's not too hot because the fish don't die. But a lot of people fish that canal in the afternoons and evenings. So
yeah, we probably only raised the temperature about 10 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe 8 degrees Fahrenheit going through that, Commissioner. So the water gets pulled off the north side of the plant and then discharges into the canal, which is where you see that where most of the people are fishing and so forth. They know where the hotter water is because the fish like it.
I can't.
But yeah, 10 degrees warmer. That's all.
Yeah, I can't think of any other questions right now. But if I do, I'll take down your name and I'll contact you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Reed. Commissioner Selvage.
Yes, I see Bill Anderson's on the line. Bill, sounds like a lot of water. What impact will this have on the discharge into the 7 wetlands and the Alafire?
We anticipate that water obviously increasing. That's coming down to 7 wetlands and being processed through there, and then ultimately either going to the Alafaya or Tico. Right now and really for the past several years since Tico started taking water, that discharge to the Alafaya, the frequency of it has reduced maybe 3, sometimes 6 months out of the year, all depending on rainfall and evaporation as well. But long story short, we do anticipate increasing the flows coming to the wetland and then ultimately going to the Alafaya and or Tico.
But it's not going to be to the degree that will cause problems.
No, we don't anticipate it. In fact, I've always felt that the more flow, the quantity of water that goes through that wetland is more healthier for those types of ecosystems.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And maybe a question that you can answer, or maybe my colleague, Commissioner McLeod, so both of you all serve on the water cooperative board there for us. Is hearing what I'm hearing about maybe the lesser use of water, maybe because of Unit 3 being shut down. Would this help support anything for us when it comes to our water, the gallons per day that we have, for our Lakeland community, or any challenge with that at all, or support with it at all?
It does not change the permitting at all, no, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Steve, for the presentation. And I'm curious about the arrangement with Tico. That seems like a good deal for us, but I assume they're able to do something and utilize that water that we're not. I guess when I saw that on paper that we're sending water to another utility, I'm just trying to understand that and the reasoning behind it, and then why we're not able to recapture that water.
So, Commissioner, if I may, that was an agreement we made with both the Tampa Electric Company and the Water Management District. The City of Lakeland had no capital costs in that project. And so out of that, though, we are supporting Tico by sending that water. We've been averaging about 5.8 million gallons a day leaving the wetland going to Tico. We are not charging them anything. Again, we didn't have any capital costs. That was about memory serves, about $120, $130 million project. For Tico to come and build a pump station at the south end of the wetland, treatment wetland, and about 14 miles of pipeline going down to their Polk power station. Once they get that water from us, they're also accepting some water from Mulberry as well, but they're having to treat that water, just like Steve was saying, before they use that water in their cooling processes. They have to treat that water, and they're doing that on their site. And so that's how that all originated. It really is a beneficial arrangement for Lakeland. We're able to dispose of that water really without any cost to it. That water that goes down to the Alafaya, obviously there are sampling costs, maintenance costs to keep up with the equipment and all the infrastructure for that portion of it. For the portion that goes to Tico, though, there's really no cost to us on that.
Thank you, Bill. And I remember that now when you were out there showing me the pump station they had installed. I think it just, when you look at it on paper and you say, hey, we're a utility, we're sending this excess water to another utility. Is there something we could or should be doing with that? But that makes sense in that context, and we would have to treat it. But thank you for the clarification.
My pleasure.
You have to treat it and send it back. And the nice part about that entire project is it relieved us of an excess need that we couldn't do otherwise. And corrosive chemicals in high volume water systems are the things that do the most damage. And so, you have all these latent chemicals, and they just eat the edge, the pipes, as well as the equipment that propels them dramatically. So the fresher the water we can deal with, the better off we are in our own equipment. And that helps to save that as well. Other questions by commissioners or committee members? Mr. Reinhardt, one last question on the temperature. In the canal, that we're raising the temperature 10 degrees, and I'm asking this because I know can be an ecological question by people, and fish do like it, and we aren't having any fish issues. What does that do to the entire temperature of the lake? Because I think we monitor that as well, don't we, after it reblends from the canal into the lake over time? And do you have those numbers handy? If you don't, I know Lori Smith would.
Well, I don't know exactly how there is a thermal plume that goes out into the lake, and we actually are, part of our permitting process. We are looking at doing a study on the thermal plume, but on average, I think we have almost an insignificant impact on the overall lake. A part of our permit does require us to maintain. If the lake gets down to a too low of a level, we have to stop taking water out of the lake at that point. So, but as far as I know, and as far as you can tell by the water temperatures coming into the plant, we have almost no impact on it when the water comes back around to us.
And when we take it out, when we turn it off, taking it out of the lake because the levels are dropping, we use wells to be able then to supplement that need.
No, I don't know if we've ever actually had to shut down because of it. I mean, in my time, no, it hasn't got close to being low enough. But it is one of the things we monitor is the level of the lake, so that way there's always enough water in that lake for fishing usage and for recreation and so forth. And also, that way there's enough volume also to handle our discharge into the lake. But and in reality, we do not do. There's almost zero impact that we have on that lake as far as the temperature of the water coming back around to us, which we would definitely see because we monitor our water temperatures going in and out of our process, and we don't supplement with water. The only way to operate Larson right now is via the water off of for the steam turbine. We can operate our combustion turbine in simple cycle. The steam turbine requires the water off the lake to cool it off.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any other questions by committee members? All right, committee member Troutman.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I don't know if this is the proper place for this question or not, but whenever I hear conversation about water, it draws me back to the Polk County Cooperative, water, future water sustainability issues, things of that such. Do we know how our water usage impacts even in that space? I had some technical issues earlier, so I don't know if they recovered that as they talked about the wetlands and the Lafayette, but if you could talk about that at all, if this is the proper place for that question, how does that usage impact that long-term sustainability?
We did get that question, and it doesn't impact our permitting as well. It's just part of our overall need to work on conservation of water all the time. And so Mr. Anderson's department is highly aware of that and our long-term responsibility in that regard, but it does not impact our permitting.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to add too, just because this is an industrial process, there are certain things that get put into the water that we're releasing into the wetlands, and it's allowed to settle into the wetlands area out there. That won't be happening anymore. And so, Bill, you might want to jump in if you think you need to, but we have had some discussions in the past of what limits we might need to have at Unit 3 because of that, so that it's not impacting what's going into the Alphi ultimately. And they were concerned about heavy rains and things like that might cause everybody some concerns. But since we're not generating with Unit 3 anymore, I would consider the water quality piece of it to be actually a net benefit. Bill, I don't know if you got a different opinion, but that's my view.
No, and this is part of a long-term study. We're nearing the end of looking at specifically one of the constituents of water, which we refer to as conductivity, which is basically the dissolved solids in the water. We do anticipate that improving now that Unit 3 is shut down. And I say improving, those numbers lowering what's coming into the wetland. However, I'm being very cautious about that. We, again, at the very end of a long-term study on that particular thing, looking at the entire wastewater system, the collection system. So it's not just McIntosh. We have other industrial inputs that are coming into us. And so we're looking at that, expecting that final technical report hopefully by the end of April, and that'll tell us a little bit more about that. Committee Member Troutman, let me clarify too what the mayor was kind of referring to. When we're talking about this water that's going to our 7 wetland system and ultimately going to TECO or Alafaya, that is all part of our wastewater permit through DEP. The other permitting concerning alternative water sources, PRWC, and our freshwater permits, that is an entirely separate permit that we have with the Water Management District.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Anderson, because that was my initial question too, Mr. Mayor, and about that situation. So thank you for that clarification. Appreciate that.
Any other comments or questions? All right, Mr. Ivy, next.
Very good. This is going to be a quickie. We're going to turn it over to legal, and it's their turn to step us through the only agreement that I'm aware of that we have.
Good afternoon. We just have one item for your consideration today. With the shutdown of Unit 3, we do have a need for closure of the byproduct storage area associated with the unit. And in order to comply with that, we have acquired the consulting services of Geosyntec Consultants, Inc. They will be providing services related to the closure of the byproduct storage area and in compliance with the coal combustion residual rule. Part of the services that they'll be providing will be conducting a site visit, as well as data review and analysis, and then also designing a report to outline the technical approach that they'll use for staff to close the byproduct storage area. They'll do an evaluation and then issue a final report, as well as provide some additional support services related to CCR rule compliance. The services are all being conducted pursuant to the city's existing continuing contract for environmental services, which was approved back in October 2019 with Geosyntec, as well as their proposal. All expenses will be paid in accordance with the city's consultant expense reimbursement policy, and the total not to exceed dollar value of the agreement is $68,500. That is included in Lakeland Electric's FY21 budget as well. And we would ask for your favorable recommendation for approval.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
So I see a motion by Committee Member Dennis and seconded by Commissioner Selvage. And any discussion by any committee members? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same. Unanimously passes. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, that is all we have for this committee today, sir.
Thank you very much. Well, that will terminate our meeting. Any comments, Dan, on how we could improve this process? Mr. Tillman, our newest committee member.
Right now, I'm just learning, but I think it's a great process. There's lots of opportunity for interaction with everyone. So it's very informative. And at this point, you know, I'm just learning. So we'll, I think, just keep going the way you're doing it.
Well, thank you very much for your input. And I'm sure you have had some access to the facilities. I think you did some touring, didn't you not? Already?
Yes, I did. I met with Joel, and I've actually been watching the recordings of the past meetings since November. So it's been very enlightening, informative for me.
Great, sir. Thank you. Committee Member Troutman.
I just wanted to go on record to thank Joel and his staff for their social engagement throughout our community. They were vendors or participants in the Black Heritage Golf Scramble that the Central Florida Business Diversity Council put together last month, and just want to be on record to say thank you for that. As a municipal utility, sometimes people don't quite see value in that, but we do see your efforts to support community initiatives like that, and want to say thank you on that as well.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate that.
Any other comments from committee members? Well, I will say then on behalf of the committee, we are so grateful for the execution of getting Unit 3 shut down, for the planning that was required, for the difficulties that it takes in terms of people on making those accommodations, for making sure we're getting it cleaned up properly as we go forward. And we thank you for your leadership in what is a very, very tough decision. We were probably beneficial in the fact that it wasn't a newer coal plant, that we had an older coal plant that was costing us money and did also need to be shut down, but then matches really what our ecological goals are as a nation too. So thank you for getting that done. And please share our enthusiasm to the entire team for a job well done.
Thank you, sir. I'll do that. I would like to say this has been a team effort across several departments in this city, so it's not just Lakeland Electric going it alone. I can't say enough good things about everybody that has participated and jumped in to help out. Everything has exceeded my expectations, honestly, so I'm very grateful for that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn? I see one from Commissioner Walker. Is there a second? From Committee Member English, and good to see you, sir. All those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, same. We are adjourned. Thank you.